Alrighty, what is up today? Not sure if anybody's actually here, but if you arrive, give us a shout out in chat. There we go. Okay. Starting out today, just going to kind of look at some interesting things on Glitch, see if there's any cool JavaScript kind of stuff to look through. I think this might be a new way to do this. Going to try to maybe just review some stuff, talk about JavaScript, and then get into the discussion for today. So today's discussion is technical communication skills, which are a very important thing in pretty much any job that involves tech. I've got some notes typed up, trying to do this a little more formally this time. We'll see how this goes. As always, if anyone has any questions, please do ask them immediately, and I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. Figure out how to just get my chat up, though. That's one of the confusing parts here. There we go. Cool. Yeah, so let's explore. Nondescript dog. Let's see what this is. Oh, it's just like snake. Kind of interesting. Okay. Oh, shoot. That's not what I wanted to do at all. There we go. So it's a multiplayer snake. Let's look at some of the source here. We have some class stuff. Interesting, using Lodash, it looks like. Very interesting. Cool. It's a pretty neat little project. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into this, I think, around technical recruiting. Or not recruiting, sorry, technical communication, and kind of what that means, and just some ideas of how to do it better. Yeah, so feel free to ask any questions that you have in chat at any point, and let's go ahead and get into this. So I think that I have this broken up into a couple little different things. First and foremost, I think one of the cool things, one of the coolest things within the tech world right now, people talk about, is rubber duck debugging. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this, but I'm also sure a lot of people haven't. It's a pretty interesting idea. You basically get a little rubber duck, and you talk to it and explain your code. And you look a little crazy because you're just talking to a rubber duck. But it's actually a pretty genius way of doing things, because when you talk about mistakes and stuff, if you have a culture a lot of times that doesn't promote, understanding mistakes and things like that, sometimes it's a lot easier to talk to an inanimate object over a coworker. And a lot of times the way that this works is, you'll have a bug in your code, and you'll be looking for some, solution. As you're going through, you're talking to your duck, you're explaining, we do this step, and then it goes to this step, and then it goes to this step. And then right about there is when you'll realize that when you thought it was going from, step B to step C, it's actually jumping down to step D instead, or doing step D before step C or whatever. And a lot of times it's a good way of just stepping through code, really figuring out what's wrong with it. We use it a lot at work, but we do it with coworkers. People at my job, very luckily, are, they're there to help. They're not too worried about whether or not you got something wrong or right. We don't really believe in stupid mistakes. We think that they're, just mistakes happen. And so I find that's really helpful, because in that case, it's a little bit more like pair programming, but also rubber duck debugging. And so someone will be explaining their code to you. 9 times out of 10, they will see the error immediately because they're telling you how it works. And as they're telling you how it works, they realize what's wrong. But, that 10th time with a rubber duck, you just don't get anywhere. You don't figure something out. I feel as though a lot of times if you have a real person, that 10th time, that person goes, but wait, what about this part? Or something like that. And you really get that interaction that helps when you get two brains together. So I highly recommend doing this in your own code. If you're working alone, you're working on an open source project or something, call over a random person. They don't have to be a programmer, or get a rubber duck or talk to something, and just explain how it works, what it's doing, and why you're trying to do it. And oftentimes with those 3 questions, you can definitely figure out kind of what you're trying to do. And you'll often find errors that you couldn't see just looking at it yourself and not saying it out loud. So the other thing, a couple other things I wanted to talk about in this cast. So the other side of kind of technical communication, outside of, actually debugging code, actually working through problems, is presenting technical ideas. And this happens a lot if you're an engineer, especially in a company that has salespeople or design people who are not necessarily developers or product people, which is a lot of companies. Presenting technical ideas is going to be a large part of your job as a front-end engineer, or a back-end engineer, really any kind of engineer. But I'm going to kind of keep this specifically in the realm of front-end, just since that's what I know better. There are a lot of considerations to have while dealing with technical ideas. A big one is avoiding unintentional language traps, which is something I think can happen all too easily, where you start describing something to someone and you're doing a good job of describing it, but in doing so you're using things like, you just need to do this, or this is easy, or everybody knows that, or even assuming that everybody knows something and treating someone like they know it. Oftentimes that can result in people feeling misrepresented at the best, and getting really bad imposter syndrome at worst. Oftentimes imposter syndrome comes from everyone around you having the feeling that everyone around you knows a bunch of stuff that you don't know, when in all reality we all miss things. Even people who studied computer science miss things at times. So really just making it codified in your company's culture, and rules, so to speak, that language needs to be considered, can really go a long way with this. And so consider what you're saying. Consider things like the words, this is easy, or when somebody calls you over to do a rubber duck debugging session or whatever, then you say, they start explaining stuff, or they ask you how something works, and then you just say, oh yeah, no, this is easy, here, let's just do this. It's really easy to do. It's a really simple it's a simple trap to fall into, which it can be hard to fix, But if you just pay attention to it and really, really concentrate, this is one that can really help to increase your ability to present technical ideas and to get everybody onto the same page. Because what happens all too often is once you have engaged someone and you've made them feel as though they're an imposter, or that's the worst case, or at best that they just kind of don't know this thing, or that they might be dumb, or anything, they start to check out. And so a meaningful discussion can't happen when someone's checked out of a discussion. And so, by saying everyone knows this thing, or starting out a conversation with, okay, so as everyone knows, we're doing this, or you just need to do this to get that to install. Those things are not justs, or everybody knows, because some people don't. And so really lay to bear all of the pre-assumptions that you have about everyone in the meeting, or in the group, or whoever you're talking to, and really explain to them the basis of where you're getting from, or where you're going to, whatever. With that in mind, in a lot of ways, your goal in technical presentations and technical idea presentation is to demystify. You're taking something that is complex, that has a complex language around it, and attempting to make it less complex. That can be done in a number of ways, but there are a couple ground rules that I find that really, really help when talking about this kind of thing. So first of all, you don't need to amaze anybody with your knowledge, right? You got hired at the company because you were smart enough to do the job that you needed to do, or you put in the work. Even, I don't want to say smart enough, because that implies that there are people who aren't smart enough, and I don't really honestly think that there are. But you worked hard enough to do the job. You don't need to impress people constantly with your knowledge. And with that, oftentimes jargon is the way that people do that. It often, jargon only serves in, to get in the way of a discussion. That goes back to the everyone knows concept, that jargon is a socially agreed upon language, but if not everyone was in that social agreement, then jargon just becomes a problem. And a lot of times it can be used to gatekeep discussions, especially to within a specific subgroup. So, a lot of times we'll hear around the office, and this is something I'm sure everyone hears, and it's something that I don't know how to fix, but I wish we could fix. But you'll hear people in a sales side of the organization saying oh, well, dev, I'll never understand what they're talking about over there. That's way too much. And the couple times that I've tried to explain, well, this is what we're talking about, this is what we mean, it usually comes out pretty well that at the end sales goes, oh, well, that's not as hard as we thought it was. But, it keeps people in subgroups that don't fit into your subgroup from being there, and being in on the discussion, which is never a good thing. Having a diverse set of backgrounds and ideologies to come from can really help. So another big thing, take your time with a technical discussion. Technical presentations don't have to take forever. They can take a while. They don't have to go super, super fast. A lot of times there's this pressure to, if you're explaining a concept to someone, you got to get back to work and they got to get back to work. But hopefully you have a company that understands that when you're talking about something important, sometimes you can't just rush through the discussion, and a lot of times technical decisions are important. And so just remember that a fast chat is a confusing one. And if you can, make a plan for the discussion beforehand. This goes to the idea of having an agenda before a meeting, but at the very least have some idea of what you're going to talk to this person about before you really start explaining things to them. That can be really, really helpful. And finally, within the technical communication side of things, I'm going to actually go ahead and move my notes over here so that anybody can see them. We are here. Finally, the last thing is really just don't talk down to people. It's this kind of, again, goes back to the diverse backgrounds, and not everybody knows the same things which is a good thing in a company. So don't talk down to people. People not knowing things is really an opportunity for you to teach them. It's not an opportunity for you to look better than them or to make them feel bad. And finally, I've said this a couple times through here. It's on the notes though. So people come from all kinds of different backgrounds, and a lot of times the idea of common knowledge or common jargon or anything is not as common as we think it is, and that's can be a problem. My music is laughing in the background. That was creepy. So anyway, if there are any questions in chat, that's pretty much the extent of my talking about this. I am going to go ahead and I'll leave this up here, and then I'm also going to pull up this over here. And so, oh shoot, I'm going to collapse that. So does anybody have any questions in chat? I can see there are a few people here. Don't know who you are, but feel free to say hi. I'd love to see who's here. But yeah, essentially, those are kind of my notes on technical communication. I'll be doing another one soon. You can see I started writing here. I want to do another one on non-technical communication, which is as important, if not more important, than the technical side of your job. So we're about 20 minutes into the stream now. I think I'm just going to look through some... maybe I'll do like a little chat about some of my favorite resources for learning things. I don't know if you've heard of Dev2, anybody in chat, but it's pretty solid. They have a lot of communication about the kinds of things that I really want to talk about on this stream, which are, lots of technical stuff, but then at the same time a lot of, like job style things, resume gap stuff, lots of different things, right? It's a lot of really good information. I'd highly recommend Dev2 if you get a chance to read over it. And outside of that, Medium's a really good resource. I am going to try to start posting more information, more highly technical posts, because I found that posts are a much easier way to do the highly technical stuff. So hopefully I can get maybe a Do-While website up that has maybe a blog. I'd really like to transfer a lot of this into potentially a YouTube channel. So maybe taking some of the things from the stream, condensing them down into a video format, and then putting them on YouTube. I do have my YouTube channel. If you go to dowhilestream.stream, you can see here this channel. You can watch the Twitch here, or you can watch it anytime on YouTube. If you would, go subscribe, and I post every video that I do on here on their YouTube channel, so you can see the past few videos have all been on here. There's 4 or 5 on here, and so I'm going to be doing that. I'll still be posting the stream videos, but I would really like to see some more. I'd really like to see how this format works with talking about the same kinds of things that we talked about today, but in a more condensed YouTube style format. So if that's something you'd want to see, tweet out at me or follow me on Twitter and let me know somehow that you are interested in that. We do have a Twitter for the stream, which is just twitter.com/dowhilestream. This tells about all of the I'll post about all of the stream highlights and everything, maybe some articles if I write any, different things like that. And feel free to send messages if you have any questions that can't take place in chat here because the chat is, I'm not streaming or whatever. Feel free to post DMs to Do-While or to me, and I will try to answer those. But I don't think I have really much more to talk about today, unless anybody has any questions. So, alright, well, I am probably going to call it quits on the stream a little early today. I know this only was about 20 minutes, but I will try to also condense some of this into a YouTube video style and see how that works. But thank you all for joining today, and if you don't mind, check us out on Twitter, on YouTube at dowhile.stream, and follow on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube. All right. Well, cheers, everybody.